All right. So let's please introduce yourselves a little bit. What team do you guys play on? And I guess just like, some of the roles you guys do as the roles you guys do on your team.
You want to go first, Kim?
Oh, sure. Hi. My name is Krem. I play for Cherry Limeade. I guess I'm the resident flexible aggro entity. I guess I'm mostly known for Gluga, or I was. I mainly play Sword and Shot now. Still waiting on Gluga Deco. Please give me my wife back, Nogami. I miss her so much. Um, Mainly on Limeade, but just yeah. I used to play for Vitamin C back in the day. Was also on Healthy Diet Food Groups and Reversal.
Yeah. I'm Pika. I am also on Cherry Limeade with Crib. I'm most known for Blob as of late, kind of just playing general sloshers now, though. Blob very much still included. Um, and I mostly just act as the shot caller or in-game leader for the team, so just focusing mostly on callouts and just filling in whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for like giving some of your time to just talk a little bit, like letting me talk to you guys a little bit. So, I
Of
guess
course.
for this event, what team were you guys assigned to coach? Wow.
Uh, we were assigned to Rapid Ascent,
All
which
right.
is sort of funny because both Crib and I actually coach them normally. So
This is a pretty obvious question, but you guys have obviously heard of them, worked with them before. But I guess especially with you guys with like the experience before, like talk a little bit about I guess just like getting to know everyone on the team, getting to know like everyone's role, I guess like being able to like communicate with each of them.
you want to start on that, Crib, or do
Yeah,
you want me
sure.
to?
I can start with that. Getting to know Rapid Ascent was honestly a pleasure. Just seeing how open they were to the game and just like how much they wanted to learn about stuff. As a team, they're really fun to work with. I haven't had a chance to work with them much, but from what I've had, I just been able to like sit down when Pika's voting or just like sit in or like give some advice here and there. I've really enjoyed like seeing how much they want to grow and just like how open they are mentally. It's super refreshing.
Yeah, totally. What's really interesting as well is that even though, especially for me, like I've worked with the team for a few months now, they've effectively gone through like a rebirth as of late. The roster, aside from Enya, is basically entirely new as of these last like few weeks. So it's still been sort of discovering where everyone's individual skill levels are at and sort of the weapons they're comfortable in and also where they want to go. So a lot of that's kind of still being actively figured out. It's been a fun process to sort of pick apart each of their brains and see like, okay, like what roles do you want to play, how can y'all work together, like what kind of comps are we going to piece together with your individual skills and like knowledge and all of that. So it's very much an experimental phase for them right now. It's very fun to be a part of it.
Yeah, I know like I think that's part of the fun, experimenting, getting to like see like, oh, this worked, this didn't work, and how like you can incorporate what worked and what didn't, and just try to find that like medium balance, you know?
Absolutely.
All right. I guess again, you guys have coached before, but w- what are like some of the different like I guess similarities like coaching one on one and then like going to coaching like a full team? Like what are the like different types of like things you have to like look at while like as one on one coaches you can like really just hone in on like one person. You're like only looking at their perspective. But like as a team coach, like what are the things that you're trying to look at or trying to help like the whole team see as like a group?
You want to go
You want
first,
me
Pika?
to start this one?
Yeah, you can.
Sure. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a really good question. Especially, I have a lot of individual coaching experience. I do coaching on Metafy. So it really is different about team sessions, especially for example, working with Rapid Ascent in preparation for IDP. Um, is you first of all just kind of even the raw format of it is that in individual coaching you're looking at that person's perspective for exactly what you're saying, like how can they improve on their own individual smaller scale stuff. But when it comes to team VODs, you're basically always looking at the overhead perspective for those replays or those recordings just to see the whole map, and that's all you're really talking about is really paying attention to how everyone is falling in line with each other. Like, what are the positions like in relation to each other? What are the special usage timings looking like around each other? It's all from a completely different perspective of just the team moving as a unit and pointing out when a certain person is out of line there, whether they're too fast or too slow, or everyone's grouping up too much, or something like that. It's all just looking at the bigger picture of how the four people connect together, and only really talking about a one individual's performance or decision making, like when it's an outlier in either a good or a bad way. Um, so it's just mostly that raw perspective thing, I guess, in terms of just the priorities, and also again, literally different perspective you're looking at the game from.
Mm.
You have something you want to add to that, Grim?
Yeah, sure. I'm not add to that. It's just like I've mainly done a lot of individual coaching, and like I was doing individual coaching, you're like focusing on like the individual and like what you can help them do better. Like with team coaching, I find myself like focusing on a lot more broader concepts and making sure like I'm not getting into like too civics, like civic enough to where they understand, but like definitely like keeping things moving along at a steady pace so we can like get through it, but also to just keep everyone on the same page and like stopping to like ask like is this good, or like does anyone have any questions, or just like checking in. I find it's like super helpful during team pod.
Totally. I like how you said like keeping it kind of basic, kind of fundamental, because that's another thing too, is that when you're focused on the team, you're focused on, are we addressing the most basic stuff? Like, are we painting well enough? Are we watching flanks properly? Are we playing objective efficiently? Because when you're looking at individual stuff, there's a lot more excuses they can say, like, oh, maybe like your role doesn't need to worry about painting right now. Your role doesn't need to worry about objective right now. That's on someone else. When you're looking at the team, it's always a question of, okay, so who is actually the one doing these things, or how many people are doing this thing? So you really do focus a lot more on the basic stuff before anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And like I've heard from like some of the other coaches, they're saying like it's sort of like taking a step back in terms of like, you guys are already at like a certain point in skill level, but then like once you're coaching, I guess like a full scale, you sort of have to like think back. It's like, okay, these are things I probably think on myself already mentally, but they might not necessarily know that, or like you might just need to remind them. I guess like is that something that does come to mind when you're doing like, I guess more specifically like um lower level coaching?
Definitely. It's sort of like you're saying it, especially for us, like as how long we've been playing competitive, and like I started at the level we do, so much stuff is just subconscious. It's kind of just muscle memory. We've learned to identify certain habits, and when you're trying to explain to other people why they should do that or why that's important, you really have to pick it apart in your own mind and say like, why do I do these things? Instead of, because again, probably for so long it's just again been muscle memory, kind of impulsive, instinctive. Um, but you have to really dig into the particular details you find and make sure that all makes sense so that that initial foundation can be built. And actually, what's really fun about that with Rapid Ascent right now as well is that because they're a pretty new roster, a lot of the players like are coming from different skill levels. Like you have Sylphie who's played in Division One, and you have Enya who's been playing like around Division 5 for a while now, and then you have like two other players that are a fair bit newer than that. So it's fun to try to figure out like, okay, for some people we really need to hit the basics and make sure that's all addressed. And then for other ones, like for other players again, like Sophie, I can be a bit more detailed, a bit like more brief with what I'm saying, knowing that they will have a basic understanding of it already. So it's also trying to curate the advice you give or the direction you give to that skill level the person has. So I guess it's sort of addressing what you're saying, like that concept definitely exists. Is that like it's no point in me being super basic for Sylphie, but for the others, I also need to like make sure I'm not just only talking too high level. I need to make sure I'm hitting the basics for them. So it's curating your words to the person you're currently addressing. Is definitely a part of it. Make sure it's matching the level that they need to build up from.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything you would like to add to that, Krim?
Oh, sure. What I find really helps to do that is like something I picked up from like watching Pika and Race Coach was breaking things down into analogies.
Mm.
I was like plugging from my own experience and thinking like, how can I best break this down in a way that's easy to understand? Because like it's kind of right, and that like the higher level in Splatoon you go, like I think things get harder to explain because a lot of decisions that players make is like they're thinking through their own head so fast. It's just like you're not really like giving it much thought. It's very impulsive. So like to step back and break that down is a very unique skill that I think like people should definitely cultivate. And it really helps with coaching if you're able to just look at your impulse and be like, why did I do that? And put it into a way that makes sense and why it should be added to like someone lower level than use flowchart.
Mhm.
Of
I
like why you should even do this to begin with.
mhm. I guess like that goes into like another point of like when you're a coach, like does it help you as a player like being a coach as well? It's like does that like sort of like go into like how like understanding the game, because like we said, like, things are so instinctual to us sometimes that we're like, why did I do that? And then like when you're going back into like watching yourself, you're like, yeah, why did I do that?
Yeah, I would say like for me at least, like coaching, learning how to put those thoughts into words on the spot has helped so much in my gameplay because especially as a shot caller, like sort of my whole job is to point out or like notice things going on and briefly like just quickly on the spot communicate based on the information I'm seeing right now, based on what I'm seeing on my screen right now, how should we react, and giving a distinct direction to that. So if I was just inputting on my controller with some instinct that I think will help me win a 1v1 in that moment and not saying anything, that's not really helping. Even if I have that knowledge in my head like works, actually knowing how to break that apart and communicate it quickly is super important. Just to call outs in general, but again, especially in the shot call context. And again, sort of coaching, trading me to do exactly that, to really try to match words to my thoughts about the game has helped like exponentially with that. So it's been one of my favorite things about coaching for the last like couple of years now. Do you have a similar feeling, Krim? Because I know you have been exploring coaching more as well.
Yeah, I definitely have a similar feeling. Especially since I work with a lot of aggros, a lot of aggressive play I think is like impulse, and I know a lot of aggro players aren't the best at explaining it. So like coaching has like forced me to like look at some of the decisions I've made and being aggressive and be like, why did I do that, or why did that work, why that didn't work, like how I can tweak or adjust it for next time. And that's really helped in my own growth because I'm able to look at a VOD and be like of myself and be like, okay, doing that was really bad. I can adjust it in this, and this way, or I can try this, or like if that was good, it's like okay, this worked because of this, and this reasons, and I should put that down for later as to why I should keep doing that. So it's definitely helped my own growth a lot.
For sure. I know, like, I mean, I like, wow, what am I trying to say? I know, like, coaching, sometimes people are like sort of afraid to coach, or like they don't like know really like what to say. And I guess like, what's like one piece of advice that you would try to like tell people that want either like are interested in getting into coaching or like are still like relatively new to coaching?
Uh, I mean, at least for me, I know it's the generic just do it, but it really is true. I even just like a few days ago, I started laughing to myself, thinking back like how nervous I was for my first ever coaching session, and like how long it took me to explain certain things that now I can like say a lot more clearly in much less time. Um, so it's something that you just again the more you practice it, the better you'll get at communicating those thoughts, and the more just the better you'll feel about it. And it's funny enough, my first ever Metafy student was IB Woomy, and look at him now. He's doing really well in tournaments. He's top of the city leaderboard, so I think I helped him out a little bit. But it's just funny to think that like again, something that took me 20 minutes to explain to Woomy like a year and a half ago, I can say in 5 minutes or less. The same kind of abstract concepts and stuff like that, and yeah, it just takes getting used to. But the other thing I also want to say on that is like even if you are like in terms of being in the competitive scene, like maybe you're not as high level, like maybe you are just mid level, even like kind of breaking through low level, like still it's fine to still try to coach people underneath you. Like if you have any bit of experience that someone newer to the game thinks might still be valuable, like that is still valuable experience you can share with them. You again, even if you're not a top player, if you're not a high level player, because that's still again like any bit you have over them. If they want that time from you, they want that information from you. Like feel happy sharing it. It doesn't matter if another player could say more on it than you could. Because yeah, it's still helping them first of all, and second of all, just like we were saying before, like it's going to help you hone in your own understanding of the game because you're really going to have to challenge your own thoughts and wonder why do I think these things. And when you're forced to put it to words, you might be like, oh, maybe this part can actually get better, and maybe other parts be like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. I really like the fact that I think this way. It'll help you grow as well. Um, so really, don't be afraid of it. That's funny. Again, it sounds basic, but it really is true. Crim?
Yeah, I honestly feel the exact same way. It's like when I first started coaching, there's just a lot of stuff I couldn't explain well, and it really like forced me to reflect inwards and be like, okay, what's the best way to explain this to someone in a way that makes sense to them and to myself? Of just like it forced me to break down a lot of my own personal habits and like kind of like Pika said, it's just like you really just have to get into it and do it, and it'll make sense as you go along. Like it's something you just start and then like you reflect upon as you start coaching more. It's like, okay, like I coached about this and this. It's like, how could I like be more concise, or how can I break this down a little better? And it leads to a lot of growth, like both as a player, as mentioned earlier, but also as a coach, because like you figure out how to break things down better, and like it teaches you how to teach people, and it works out really well because like it's helped me in other areas too, of like even just like to someone that has no experience of the game, of like how do I explain Splatoon to someone that has never played the game in their life. Like if you asked me that a year ago, I would have fumbled, but it's like now it's like I can actually give a somewhat concise answer, and that's honestly thanks to coaching.
For sure. I know, like, again, a lot of people are either like nervous to get into it or just don't know how. I guess like the biggest thing was just like, put yourself out there. Like, just what's the worst that can happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like also you can like always for me like I have like the Metafy platform. I'm able to like rely on actually get paid through that and have a lot of fancy organization stuff. But like even if you just want to offer free coaching to other players, like you don't have to charge for it. If you do, you can. If you want to charge for it, you can also do that independently. You don't need to be on something like Metafy. But I honestly think doing it for free to start would be nice because that's actually what I did as well. Like before Metafy, I did coach for free. Shoutouts to Skep. I ever coached and realized how much I liked it. And what helps about that is that like, hey, you can just you don't feel like you're forced to deliver because like they didn't pay you anything. You're just here to try to help them. So it really lets you be more relaxed about it as well. So like if it is kind of scuffed, that's okay. You were just trying your best. It was all in good faith, and then you just try to get better at it for next time. So it doesn't need to be super fancy, formal, all of that. It can be just free coaching with a friend. Just gotta give them some feedback to start out with. Just see how you really like it.
For sure. And like, that's I think how a lot of people got started. Just like helping friends out, and they're like, hey, I like doing this, and you know, that's how like people like I think started growing. I think coaching started getting a lot more traction. I don't know if that's the correct word, but just more and more people were like getting interested in it. They're like, oh, like I can share my information.
Yeah.
I guess my last
And that's sort of the
question.
cool thing about this event. Yeah, is
Mhm.
that I was just sort of getting new players to try coaching.
Yeah, no,
It's
exactly.
really nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like some of the Division 4 teams that are coaching, they're like, man, this is my first time doing it, but like they're all having like a lot of fun, getting to know new people, getting to like, really test their own knowledge of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this sort of thing is a good excuse or good way to sort of be the icebreaker on that.
Yeah.
But sorry, go on to that last question.
No, of course. Yeah. So I guess for the last question for you guys that I have is that do you think this event is like helping bridge like a bit of the gap between the different skill levels of the community? Like I know as like this is always sometimes a joke, but it's like high level looks at low level and sort of like laughs at them or like sort of jokes around. It's like, haha, look at them. And then like as like a low level player, at least when I was there at the time, I'm sort of just like, how do I talk to these people? Like, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to like embarrass myself, right? But like, do you think this event sort of helps like break that ice between the two levels?
I definitely would think that it will. Obviously, it's hard to say like right now. But I just know sort of just like you were saying, in my own like coaching experience, it was really interesting how quickly I developed more of like an appreciation for how much of like the low level like competitive community there actually is. Because as you move up the ladder yourself, you're kind of just scrimming people near your level. You're only worried about tournament sets against people like near or above your level. You sort of lose sight of all the people underneath you, and there's so many. So it's fun like just through coaching to touch base with them, just physically meet them first of all, but also like you hear them say like, oh, we're really hoping this coaching session will help us break through like beta bracket low ink, and it just sort of like reminds you like, yeah, all this stuff that like my own tournaments at high level, my own results in high level, like they have the same drive to break through in their spot. They have the same like sort of feeling of something to conquer in their own spot. Just puts you in the shoes of so many of the rest of like parts of the community. So at least in my experience, I feel like I really like how coaching has done that for me. So I feel like I guess the extension of that is I think by introducing a lot of other like higher level competitive players to coaching through this, hopefully it'll do the same for them.
Yeah, something else I'd like to add to that is just like I think a lot of low level players I think like get a little starstruck sometimes. It's something that happened to me when I first started out, and like it happened like back in the day with Deep Blues, and like one of the best experience I got was like just talking to like Marsh and realizing that they're just people.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, they're above you in terms of skill level, but like they're just people, and like you could just talk to them, have normal conversations with them, like get to know them. Like they're people too. And honestly, like getting to know lower level players has like honestly been like really eye opening for me. Of just like because like kind of like I said, you lose sight the higher up you go the ladder. So like getting to like touch base with like what lower level Splatoon looks like, and just understand like what they're going through, like what their struggles are, or like how they think about the game is like it makes things feel more holistic. And I think sometimes it's super easy to lose sight of that.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like, it's also a lot of the conversation each low ink, at least from higher levels, like, oh, why do I want to watch low ink? I'm like, I don't know any of these teams, but it's like, if you coach them or if, like, you talk to them, it's like, yes, I want to root for this team to win. I've worked with them before.
Yeah, that's actually that's funny to me because that's basically what happened when Looney Divisions came out. Like, Krim can attest to that. Or like as soon as Divisions came out, I was like, oh cool, we're in Div 1 again, and just more so just went straight down to be like, so how many of the other divisions have teams that I recognize? And I was like, oh, there's one team I worked with on Metafy in Div 5. There's one in Div 6. Oh, let's go, y'all! Like, it's just where normally if I wasn't coaching them, I didn't feel a connection to those teams down there and want to see like where they get placed and go DM them to congratulate them and stuff on it. Like if I didn't have that connection to them through coaching, I was like, oh, we're Div 1, cool, and close the forum. But it gave me such a reason to keep an eye on the rest of it. So sort of that exact similar idea of like if you're connected to people in low ink or just anything like that, anything low ink adjacent, just actually makes you feel a lot more invested in it, even if you're not able to play in it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like thank you guys for your time. We went a little bit over. But
Yeah, so
that
like a
that's
lot.
that sounds normal.
Yeah.
um but I guess like what is one piece of advice that you would give, whether it's a new coach, new player, someone who's like trying to win low ink, like what is like a piece of advice that you would try to give these people?
Um, I think what I want to say for both players and coaches, just general universal advice. Always be willing to challenge your own understanding of the game, because that's where the greatest growth comes from. And just like we were saying through this, like, yeah, coaching forces you to talk about why you think a certain way and figure out if you actually think that makes sense or not once put to words. But even as a player, like, you can do the same thing when voting yourself, when being coached, when watching content that another player puts out, like whatever it is. Uh, However you feel about a thing, like if you agree with it, why? If you disagree with it, why? Like, try to sort of further your understanding of the game by always challenging the way you currently see it, because that's how you're going to keep breaking through. Krim?
Yeah. And to add on to that, I think I would just recommend being open minded.
Mhm.
Like, just be open minded in both aspects because as a coach, you need to be like understanding of like where your players are coming from. So taking in understanding as much of the game as possible and learning to be open minded about like what people like to pick or how they like to play and how you can make that work effectively is super important. And also helps as a player because like it means you're willing to play with more things and hear more things out. Like obviously, like I know we're known for it as a team, but like doing more coaching and like with low level teams, been like, huh, I didn't think about that in that way before. I'm gonna jot that down for later. There have been some weapons where it's like I thought I had a general understanding of them, and I'm like, oh, okay, well they do this, this, and this, and then like I coach them, and they're like, oh, well they can also do this, and I'm like, I didn't think of that at all. Actually, that's super cool.
Mhm.
I didn't even think about that weapon being used in that context so effectively. Like, thank you for opening my eyes.
Yeah, I guess again, thank you guys so much for your time. why don't you guys plug yourselves a little bit? Where can people find Pika? Where can people find Crim? And where can people find Cherry Limeade?
For me, if I exist on a platform, it will be PikaDave465. That's my Twitter. That's Twitch, YouTube, Metafy, or if you want coaching from me directly, you can go there. And Blue Sky, once that becomes public. It's PikaDave465, no matter where it is.
For me, it's basically Kermithy. It'll be on Twitter until the platform dies, and Blue Sky when the platforms are public. And you can find most of my stuff on YouTube right now, and that's also going to be Kermithy. So check those out. And I also do photography stuff, but that's not public yet. So yeah.
Also, Cherry Lime SBL, or that's the handle at Cherry Lime SBL for Cherry Limeade on Twitter as well. Otherwise, just videos and streams that Krim and I do will just oftentimes feature us playing with the team. So you can find just content like that scattered around in our own things.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your time.